Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. I'm really excited. I've got a special guest, the clean libertarian, Drew Cook, is here to talk to us today about some very interesting work he's been doing with the Libertarian Party. Drew, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. This is an honor anytime I get to talk to y'all, for sure.
Happy to, and we were on your show like last year sometime.
Yeah,
That was
like
pretty fun.
I think that we run along parallel lines. Obviously, I'm more involved in the political landscape, but ultimately, voluntary charity wins the day. You
Absolutely.
can't beat that.
It's true. It's true. I see you got some different branding right now, like the Mr. Clean type thing
Oh
going
yeah,
on.
so Mr. Top Lobster made that for me,
I've
and
heard of that guy.
he yeah, he made me way more jacked than I'll ever be in real life. Very flattering,
That's the
that guy.
beautiful thing about art. You can do things like that.
He can do things. Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's great.
So, Drew, I've seen on the interwebs, there's been a bit of a shakeup in the Libertarian Party, and that's what first drew my attention to the efforts that you have going now. But can you talk a little bit about what happened? What was the big deal with what went down with the Libertarian Party?
Yeah, so historically, the party, and I say historically because I think a lot of the people who were really behind the Mises Caucus uprising have, more or less been loosely attached to the Libertarian Party for the past 6 years or so. And so historically, in 6 years or so, in that sense, it's been very lame messaging coming out of the party, right? Very beltway libertarian, especially on the lockdowns. Like, it was very, very soft,
I noticed that too. Like when I try to think what Rothbard would have said about the government locking everyone down and shutting down the economy, and then these milquetoast tweets from
yeah,
the official Libertarian Party didn't match up
at all. Like, it still doesn't register with me how anybody could not have such a visceral reaction, to that type of overstep. But there we were. And so that was really the driving force behind why the Reno reset, as it were, was needing to happen. A couple of big names like Dave Smith, got on board and really started pushing this idea of the Reno reset. And man, they showed up with numbers, in Reno, just gauging on the floor convention. I mean, easily 3/4 of the body that was on the floor were Mises, adjacent, or, actually Mises Caucus people. And yeah, those votes were swift and very one-sided, and so fast forward to where we are now. There were some changes with like the abortion plank that was removed. And then, the wording about, bigotry is irrational and repugnant was taken out, and it was changed up. It's not gone. It's just worded differently. And so, yeah, it's still, and how I felt for a long time is like I'm stuck somewhere in between these like really left libertarians and the Mises. Like, I'm right there in the middle, and like, I just don't care. So that's why I do the Sober Caucus, man. Like, it's the one area in the party where I'm like, okay, I can do this. I get this.
Nice. So, and that was what all the buzz about the Libertarian Party and the shakeup with the Mises Caucus. That's what drew my attention to your work with the Sober Caucus. So, what is that exactly? Is it like a subset of the Mises Caucus, or of the Libertarian Party? What is it organization-wise?
It's essentially just a body within the Libertarian Party. We are an issues caucus, not a candidate caucus. So, for instance, leading up to Reno, we had a member who was looking at an LNC seat, and asked for our endorsement, and we declined, not because we don't believe they were the best for the job, but we don't want to ever become that, right? We are here solely for the purpose of providing a safe atmosphere for like-minded individuals who are at a convention, or if they don't want to drink, if they don't want to use, they don't want to be around it, they can hang out with us. The other part of it is, is that it is our firm belief that people that are in recovery are the very best voices to amplify when it comes to talking down prohibitionists. Here you have a group of people who are calling for the end of the war on drugs, and they do not have a vested interest in that. You know, as you would find somebody who was going to recreationally use whatever, right? None of us are ever going to use again, yet we can still all proudly and loudly say that the end to the war on drugs is the best way forward for this country. And so
that's a pretty powerful voice, because you think about the you know, the stuff they usually have for the anti-drug campaigns is the people who, I was addicted for this many years and I got caught by the law, and so I had to turn my life around, and that's why we should pass all these laws. Yeah. And to have someone saying, no, that's why we should not pass all these laws. That's a pretty strong counter message.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. And so that was the initial outset. That's the goal, and that's the goal we've maintained. But we've also kind of like evolved a little bit. In Reno, we brought 100 fentanyl test strips and 24 doses of Narcan and distributed them freely to anybody at convention. So, you know, we were able to really talk about harm reduction and have that option there for anybody, because if you think about it, a national convention, you have people flying in from all around the country, and they're going to, if they're going to party, they're going to party on the local supply. The chances that they were trying to smuggle things through security checkpoints from the airport is slim to none. So we wanted them to at least be safe about that. So, and go ahead.
So I don't know too much about the recreational substances scene. What are those test strips? What are those? What do they do?
Okay, so fentanyl is a synthetic opiate that has been prominently showing up in everything on the market. It is the driving force behind, you know, the 100,000 overdose deaths that we saw in 2020. And what a fentanyl test strip is a method to test whatever substance that you have purchased to tell if there is a presence of fentanyl in it or not. Fentanyl is an extremely potent opiate. And if you are not used to taking that, a very small amount can and will, you know, put lights out, pretty much. And Narcan is something that will reverse the effects of an overdose. So it's a nasal spray, somebody's overdosing, administer, they come back around. It's a miracle drug in and of itself. It's amazing.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. And you had these to distribute to anyone who wanted them?
Yeah, we left them. So we had a hospitality room, which was really, really cool. And on the table in the hospitality room, we just left it there for the entirety of convention. We you know, advertised it, said, hey, no questions asked, just come grab it if you need it, because, like, you know, nobody, the likelihood of somebody coming up and say, hey, I need some of those, or, you know, it's an awkward conversation, you know, go ask the sober guy for the fentanyl test strip, you know. So we just left them sitting out, and they all got taken, every single one.
Wow, I was going to ask, did any of them get used? All of them?
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where did the funds to purchase those come from?
We raised funds amongst ourselves and amongst the party at large. Leading up to the convention, we fundraised, and we just said, hey, we got a hospitality room. This is what we want to do. And we had so much support from everybody. We raised like $1,000 before convention. While at convention, we actually raised an additional $335, which we were, I'm sorry, $353. And we were able to take that and donate that to a local fellowship hall there in Reno, Nevada. And so it's just like, you know, we none of those funds that we've taken in get used for us, right? Like, that's not a us thing. It's an everybody thing. How can we use this money to benefit other people? And that's kind of been where we're at with it, right? Post convention, something really cool that I'm pumped up about is that we had enough money left over from because like coffee from a hotel is expensive, man. Like what did we, it was like 10 gallons of coffee cost us $550. Yeah, man. And so like, and the hotel had very strict guidelines, like you could not bring in outside food or drink. We still did, but we wanted to at least buy the coffee from them. But yeah, even after everything, we had enough money left over we now have 2 scholarships, $500 scholarships available, one to anybody regardless of party affiliation, and the other one reserved specifically for LP members. And these scholarships are for people who are needing to go to treatment or getting to sober living, and they just need a little help with that. And so that's what we were able to do. We still have more left over. We're just trying to figure out what's the best thing to do with it at this point,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you're doing some things that are almost like a nonprofit charity, but you're the word that comes to mind is club. Right?
Yeah.
Not quite a club within the Libertarian Party, but it seems like you kind of are, because you don't advocate for specific people to fill roles. But would it be accurate to say that you advocate for certain policies or towards certain policies?
Absolutely. And that's kind of a long-term goal for the caucus as well, is to kind of network and see what's working elsewhere in the country, like what local changes, what local initiatives and petitions are moving the needle, to fix this prohibition issue that we have. And, that's long term. As it stands right now, there's a couple of things, we're looking at that's in the works, but we're still just gathering members, making sure that we have people. The goal is to have members in every single state. Right. And we're a long ways off from that, but we are getting closer. So that's the cool bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
One member at a time.
Yeah, man.
So it sounds like the Sober Caucus existed before the toss up or switch up with the Mises Caucus taking over the Libertarian Party. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Sober Caucus actually started as the Straight Edge Caucus, and it was 2020 roundabout that the concept was created. I actually made a poll on Twitter, and like I think 12 people.
Wisdom.
Yeah, the source of all wisdom, man. Like I was like, should this concept come to life, should I see this through? And I think like 10 people said yes, and like it would have only taken one person saying yes for me to like say no more, fam, like we'll get it. But yeah, that's when it started, and it took about a year of consistently talking about, hey, this is something I want to start, holler at me, let's get it together. And then a couple of core members really came in and helped me kind of get the ball rolling, and then a few more people, and then before you knew it, we were actually meeting on a semi-regular basis, and came up with some bylaws, that fun thing everybody just absolutely loves. And
yeah.
The most important thing we did come up with was a statement of principle, which I'm still very proud of the way that looks, because it came out awesome. And so, yeah, we are about, officially, I think we're about a year old officially, since we had bylaws and said, hey, we are a thing. So
nice.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that, the statement of principle. I won't ask you to recite it or anything like that, but if you could boil it down into 1 or 2 sentences, what is the principle of the Sober Caucus?
So the principle is using libertarian policies and principles to advocate for safe drug use in the market. So it's a very strong harm reduction stance, but it's also a very strong recovery stance. Neither condoning or shouting down any type of particular narcotics use. We really wanted to never come across as like some sort of elitists, like there's room for everybody to do whatever you want to do. we just make a very strong statement that, you know, we believe that this is the best pathway forward for the market. And essentially it's like, you know, dead addicts can't recover. It's that kind of mentality. If I were to boil it down, and yeah, sorry, man.
No, it's it makes me think of the general, well, of course, the victimless crime.
Yes.
The victimless crime, the classic example is drug use, because if someone does start hitting drugs too hard, the person they're harming is themselves.
Right.
And you could say, oh, but they're harming their family too, if they have a family. Well, the same thing could be true about gambling or alcohol abuse, any other self-destructive behavior. The primary person who's getting hurt is the person who's doing it. And adding another element of harm, throwing them into prison, it's obviously, the threat of that obviously isn't deterring them from doing what they're doing. It's just hurting them more.
Well, let's be realistic too. I think, and I know he gets harped on a lot. Maybe he deserves it, maybe he doesn't, I don't know. But Hunter Biden, it doesn't matter about the person. It's all about socioeconomic status. Like, who do you know? So the people that are getting harmed by, you know, this prohibitionist policy is the poverty-stricken communities. You know, it's not the well-to-do families. It's not in those neighborhoods or sections of the population.
And often there's a racial element to that.
Very much
well.
so.
You know, people point the finger of racism a lot nowadays, but the most racist organization has always been the state.
Without a doubt, man.
No way around that.
Without a doubt. And it's not just what I don't think a lot of people realize is what life is like for a felon once they come out of jail. I can tell you around here in Oklahoma, if you have a trafficking or distribution charge, you are not getting a lease on an apartment. Bottom line, ain't going to happen. Nobody's going to rent to you at all. What do you do with that? I mean, what is your option when you come out? Like, hotels are expensive. I don't even extended stay spots. I mean, you're talking.
It adds up.
Yeah. That's double the amount of rent that you would, you know, need to pay in order to live comfortably, at least on a minimum wage salary, because that's pretty much the only job you're going to be able to get with those fresh charges on your record.
Yep. And then there's the incentive still there for them to turn back to the drugs.
Big time.
And exacerbated by the punishments, the punitive stuff that the state has stacked on them. And that's one thing that I really admire about the approach of the Sober Caucus, kind of the anti-teetotaling, and yet still against the. It's kind of both ways. You're against it, but you're also against the laws that are against it.
Yes. And so, like, my other little side venture is the Clean Libertarian podcast, right? And that actually started out as a blog, and I've been doing that for a few years now. And when I first started, I had a very narrow view of what addiction and recovery looked like. As a matter of fact, I had a very narrow view about what narcotics use in and of itself look like. But as I started interviewing more people, my perspective began to change. There was one interview that I had in particular that really was eye-opening, and that was Dr. Carl Hart. He wrote a book called Drug Use for Grownups, and this is a Columbia professor who is a neuroscientist, and he has done lots and lots of studies on the effects of narcotics on the brain. And what sets Carl Hart apart from a lot of his colleagues is he actually openly admits to using recreational heroin.
That's not usual for
not usual
for a
at all.
scientist, a professor.
Not at all. And you know, what he says is that based on the data that he has seen on the testing and everything else, is that the concept and idea that people who use these drugs are instantly addicted is not true. It's specific people who are getting addicted, and it's certainly not the majority. And so that's kind of the other part of this too, is that as a Sober Caucus member, wanting to see an end to the war on drugs is also to want to see more studies along those lines, bringing these substances out of the black market, out of the dark alleyways, and putting them into the light and letting people run their tests and really figure out like what's going on here, and allowing consumers to have that honest conversation with the retailer. I would hazard to say that there's far more applicable uses for these substances than we would ever know, because they are vilified so instantly. And so I'm sorry to keep peeling back other layers of the onion on you, but that was another kind of angle there.
No, that is really interesting, because you're right, definitely about the barrier to real research, because it's illegal. No one's going to come forward even if you try to do a study and say, oh yes, I do that drug, I want to be part of the study.
Yeah.
Even the stigma because of the laws, like you mentioned, where you've got this conviction, we know you were a user, you can't rent from us.
Yeah.
But the possibility of legitimate medical treatments has just been completely shut off by the government's war on drugs.
Yeah.
And what gets me, the biggest difference is the place where it comes from, because politicians like to play on people's sympathies, on their emotions, to pass things like anti-drug laws, but nothing the government does ever comes from a place of love or concern. They play on the love and concern of people to get these laws passed, but then it's always coercion and violence. But coming from a genuine place of love and concern, actually trying to help people like you guys are doing, that makes a world of difference. And I think it's far more effective in the long run. You can't, essentially, when it boils down to it, these are laws that are trying to enforce morality, and you can't enforce morality. You can just make hypocrites.
Yeah. So like, here's what makes recovery work. And it's across the board. This holds true for every single person who ever quit using drugs and has found freedom from substance abuse disorder. That is a total and complete surrender to the idea that you cannot use successfully. Okay. Here's the difference in between the approach that you find in the rooms or elsewhere and the approach that you find in a courthouse. Over here in the 12-step meeting and abroad, you have the term surrender. Over here in the courtrooms, you have compliance. You are only teaching compliance. You cannot mandate the surrender required in order for that change to happen at the end of a gun. It will never happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the point, right? Like that's okay. Remember the movie Inception?
Yes.
Okay. You know how the idea had to be planted in the guy's head, and so he had to think of it himself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's kind of like that. That person has to arrive at that place of surrender as an individual. Now we can provide information, we can help them in that, but ultimately nobody is forcing you to arrive at this place in the recovery rooms. But in a courthouse, you are being forced or attempted to be forced to arrive at that place.
Mm-hmm.
Can't work.
Yeah, you can't really change someone's heart or change their mind like that. You can temporarily change their behavior, but at the very least, the moment the gun is pointing somewhere else, they're going to go back to, if not doing it beforehand, and they just don't care about the consequences anymore because they've been driven to that.
Yeah.
But the change, real change, can only come from inside the person. Oh, that's deep.
It's a lot, man. I'm very fortunate to work for a nonprofit that what we do is we help bond people out of the local jail. And we resources and support for them. We also work in conjunction with the court system to provide a very, very soft form of probation-like program. This is the closest I can get to the criminal justice system without feeling like really greasy. I love what I do. And one of those things that I just lost complete track of my conversation there, where I was going with that. Wow.
It
That's
happens.
silly. Yeah,
It
man.
happens.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that at all. I was like going, yeah. Oh God.
That's all right. Nothing.
Sorry,
wrong with
buddy.
it. Well, that's okay. Let's reset. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want people to know about?
Yeah. Understand that I usually don't drop the ball that hard like I did just now. That is very unusual for me, but it does happen on occasion. But yeah, so the Sober Caucus, just to let you know, so the Amber Scholarship is what we're calling the one that is available to anybody. And the reason it's called the Amber Scholarship is in honor of a friend of the caucus's family member who passed away recently from an overdose. That's $500. If you are listening to this and you want to go into treatment, you want to go into sober living, please reach out to us on social media. On Twitter, it's at LP Sober Caucus. Our DMs are always open. You can reach out to us and we can help you out with that. The other one that is available to the LP members is called F the DEA Scholarship. Speaks for itself. But yeah, same kind of situation. But yeah, find us on social media, find us on Facebook. And then on a personal level, on the Clean Libertarian podcast, it's available on YouTube. It's available on Apple Podcasts, all the podcatchers, and we are on Odyssey now too. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be sure to get all of those links in the description for this video. Drew,
Okay.
Thanks so much for coming and talking with us about your fantastic efforts.
Hey, thank you so much. And y'all's effort. Here's the thing is that we can't hold a candle to what VIA has done. Like, y'all are the OGs in this. I just, I hope that we are making a good example in the lane that we are in. But yeah, thank you for doing what you do. Yeah, I love pointing out to get a lot of naysayers about libertarianism instantly get linked to the VIA efforts to show that, hey, yeah, we're not all, the greedy capitalist pigs,
Well, it's fun. It's because that's the way that the market works. That's the way people are interested in different things. You have this particular interest of helping people in this particular way, and it's very, very needed. And we have our own way. Other people are going to have other ways. And the more free people are to work together to come up with solutions, the more and better solutions we're going to have to society's problems.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Well, on that note, Drew, thanks so much for talking with us. You have a great night.
Anytime. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and go over to our website where you can offer donations, request help us help people who are in need voluntarily. And we'll see you next time.